Hello, everyone. It's Cole, and I'm here with.
Maxwell Frost.
Perfect. And I have a few questions for you. I just wanted to ask you, how could you describe DEI to someone without saying diversity, equity, or inclusion, as certain buzzwords instantly turn certain people's ears off?
Well, actually, not to answer your question at first, I actually think we should never say DEI. We should always say diversity, equity, and inclusion, because actually those are values that most people agree with. Right. And so the actual thing that's stigmatized isn't the words, but it's actually the acronym DEI. That's why they never say the whole thing,
right?
Because it's a bad look. Who's against equity? Who's against inclusion? So I actually always encourage people, say the words, don't say the acronym. But what I will say is, the way I explain it to people, they say, look, because of the history of this country, there are groups that have had a harder time being able to get the same opportunities as everyone else. And what diversity, equity, and inclusion is about is it's not about being unfair. It's actually about fairness and making sure the opportunity can go to everyone, whether it's Black Americans, whether it's disabled Americans, whether it's veterans, right? And so I think a lot of people are learning this the hard way right now. Unfortunately, a lot of people thought it would just impact Black people,
right?
And now they're being impacted. So there's a racist underling here that we have to really talk about, but also my hope is people are learning from this, and we want to welcome them into our coalition and say, all right, let's fight for diversity, equity, and inclusion because it helps everybody.
How do you respond to critics who say diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are divisive?
Well, what I tell them is, there's number one, most of the things people have been complaining about with diversity, equity, inclusion programs are misinformation and disinformation. The way they want us to believe it works is that, two people take a test, one gets a bad score, one gets a good score, but the one with the bad score is a Black person, and then they get the opportunity. Right. That's not how it works. Right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are about making sure that the opportunity to take the test goes to everybody, and that it's equitable, and that we go to communities that oftentimes are not in those rooms. Right. And then a lot of the institutions, they will take the people who meet all the qualifications, and then they will select who they want to select. So the meritocracy portion of this, which is the merit, the doing the thing, is still a huge part and the main component of all hiring in all universities and every diversity, equity, and inclusion program. So you've been lied to, is what I tell people. You've been lied to. The way that you think these programs work is not the way they work. And if you I encourage people to go to your local VA. Go to your Veterans Administration, ask how the diversity, equity, and inclusion worked there. Now they've fired a bunch of people, and they fired a bunch of people who worked for or voted for Trump, who were saying, all I did was help disabled veterans get their benefits. My friend, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So is elevators, escalators.
Yeah, so either way,
And then my last question is going to be, have Black-owned businesses reported increased hardships since Trump's return to office?
I have to look at the numbers. I don't know about the exact numbers, but in my community, yes, there's been a lot of hardships, and especially Black-owned businesses that are being hit by these tariffs. Like, tariffs are a tool. Sometimes you use them strategically, you can help things. But this blanket tariff, and like Trump's up here saying, oh, it's temporary pain. Maybe for a billionaire, but for like a working person, or if I just did a thing with a bunch of salons, hairdressers, and barbers. Most of them were, Black business owners, and they were all saying, and I even had a manufacturer there, a local manufacturer. The manufacturer was saying, if this item costs me X amount more to do, I have to charge the hairdressers more and the providers more. And then the hairdresser's like, then I have to increase my price a little bit. And it can completely ruin a business. Completely ruin a business. And it's a lot of our Black businesses being impacted the most right now because disproportionately, we don't have access to capital the same way. We don't have access to a lot of the remedies to help weather the storm. And so this is going to be bad for all businesses, but especially Black businesses. We're seeing it happen right now. But I always tell people to think outside the box, right? That's why I went to the hairdressers and I did things with people who own salons, because a lot of times that's not a business a lot of people think about. But we're all getting haircuts. We're all getting, people are going to
get
makeup,
their
they
started at $15 and now they're $50.
Yeah, things are going up and up and up. And people are going to think first about food, rent, that kind of stuff. And so a lot of these things that I think people should be able to afford, to go and get a nice haircut, go get your makeup done, whatever you want to do. But I've heard from these folks that there's a lot of their clients are going less and less because it's more of a commodity than a necessity. And that impacts businesses because all these folks, they feed their family this way. It's their livelihood. So, yeah.
And then my last or follow-up question to that question would be, how is the CBC helping Black entrepreneurs thrive?
So in many different ways, but I'll highlight one exactly. A lot of us a lot of CBC members work on the small business committee and on other committees working at bringing up grant programs and fighting. There's a lot of new things we want to do, but to be frank with everyone, right now we're like in a defense mode. We're trying to protect the things that we've gotten. And so whether it's, Maxine Waters is the lead Democrat on the Financial Services Committee. She's the one that really came up with the PPP program, which saved so many small businesses across the entire nation. That was Maxine Waters. That was a CBC member.
Right.
And so us being in these spaces when the decisions are being made is very important because we bring the experiences from our community and what we hear back at home.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.